Welcome to Improve Your English Writing, video number 35, which is the second part in a two-part series on the semicolon. I'll be covering independent clauses with internal commas, which is rule number 20, and a series of items with internal commas, which is rule number 21. Hopefully you recognize the theme of the video, which is internal commas. If you'd like to get notifications for this series, please click subscribe. If you like the video or you think others will find it useful, please hit like and check out links to videos and books in the description, like the companion volume here. So rule number 20 is use a semicolon to separate two independent clauses joined with a coordinating conjunction when a misreading is likely because of internal commas. That's a mouthful. Let's repeat that. Use a semicolon to separate two independent clauses joined with a coordinating conjunction when a misreading is likely because of internal commas. Using a period to separate the clauses is always acceptable. So a misreading is typically occurs when both independent clauses contain at least one internal comma. So basically, remember you have two independent clauses, and here both have at least one internal comma, or the introductory element, which is I think covered in rule number 10, or one of the independent clauses contains multiple commas. So this bullet has one in each independent clause, or this bullet says you have multiple commas in one of the independent clauses. So I don't want to go back to my video number 8, which I call my rule of thumb of 3 is a crowd, which basically says 3 commas in a sentence are generally, I'm not talking about using commas for a series, but separating like the independent clauses and phrases. 3 commas are generally too many in a sentence. So let's look at some examples. So I ordered pens, pencils, and paper, and I had them mailed express delivery. So here you have 2 independent clauses, both in blue. You have the coordinating conjunction, and then what happens is that this one sentence here has internal commas, multiple internal commas. If this semicolon here was a comma, and maybe you can, here you have a series of items, and you want to know, am I continuing this series of items, or am I moving on to a new, or am I moving on to a independent clause or something else? So to avoid the misreading, you put a semicolon here. I think my bullet explains this. A misreading is likely due to the internal commas in the first independent clause. So since we have multiple internal commas, we use, instead of a comma to separate the 2 independent clauses, we use a semicolon. Next example is, when I woke up, comma, I saw the assailant with a knife in their hand, semicolon, and if I had regained consciousness a few moments later, comma, I would be dead. So here in blue we have independent clauses, and they are separated with a coordinating conjunction. Now you'd say back to rule 3, I think it is. Oh, you separate in, 2 independent clauses with this, with a coordinating conjunction with a comma. But here, since both, and that's what this next bullet is going to say, since both independent clauses have an internal comma, you could get a misreading, because this comma here, this comma. So when you got, if this was a comma, you weren't too sure, what this was doing, what it was separating. So to make sure to designate or clearly show that you're separating the independent clauses, you use a semicolon. So once again, you use the semicolon to separate the 2 independent clauses joined with a coordinating conjunction when a misreading is likely. In this case, a misreading could occur because both clauses have an internal comma. Therefore, we use a semicolon. I think we're going to move on to rule number, oh, sorry, there is one point, one more point about rule number 20, strong break. So you may use a comma between two independent clauses joined with a coordinating conjunction when a stronger than comma break is needed or desired for clarity. So here you're making a choice. So beforehand, we were inserting the semicolon because there was going to be a misreading. Now you can actually use a semicolon instead of the comma because you need a strong break is needed or desired. So this case for a strong break often occurs when the clauses are long and the sentence exceeds 25 words. It's not necessary, but I would say this is the general case that you would want to use the strong break. Is that the clauses are long or you have a really long sentence. That semicolon will help break those independent clauses and make them more visible, or they will show a stronger break for clarity, or if you just want it. So here's an example. This situation is normally separated with a comma. I just explained that. See video 29, rule 3. So here's an example. Notice how these clauses are long and the sentence is really long too. But both what's highlighted in blue are independent clauses. Susan guaranteed the large personal loan for the kitchen remodel with her expensive sports car, but the bank's loan officer denied the loan application without even contacting her. Now here, normally we would separate this, two independent clauses joined with the coordinating conjunction. Normally you'd separate this with a comma, but you're writing this and you see this is long, or you just feel like a strong break is needed between these two independent clauses for clarity, you may put a semicolon. But more often than not, a comma works just as well. But this is if you want or desire a stronger break for clarity. So rule number 21 is use semicolons to separate a series of 3 or more phrases or clauses containing internal commas. So I don't know what rule it was. It could have been 12. Maybe it was 14. I forget already. When you have a series of 3 or more items, you use commas. But what happens when those series of items, or what happens when the series of items already contains commas? Well, when the series of items already contains commas, then use semicolons to separate the items instead of commas. So, yeah, oh, there it is. I got it right. So normally I just explained that. It's actually video number 32, rule 12. So I did get the rule right. That's pretty good. So here's I have 1 or 2 examples. I have lived in Cincinnati, Ohio, Seattle, Washington, and Santa Cruz, California. So here I'm doing city, state, city, state, city, state, and each in the series of 3 items already contains commas. So to separate each city and state, I don't use a comma because it would be very confusing. Imagine if all these semicolons, if these 2 semicolons were commas, this would actually be very confusing. But if you use a semicolon, the items, you can tell the items apart much more easily. So once again, you have a series of items with internal commas, therefore you use semicolons to separate the items. So just another example, the attendance figures arrived at 10 p.m. Zone 1, 233, Zone 2, 132, Zone 3, 265, and Zone 4, 118. So here we have, zone with attendance figures. Imagine if you had commas where the 3 semicolons were. It'd be very confusing what was going on here, but you can easily tell the items apart with the semicolon. So that's how you do that. Once again, if you have a series of items with internal commas, you use semicolons to separate the items. So that's it for this video. If you want notifications for the series, please click subscribe. If you like the video, please hit like. Check out links to books and videos in the description. Thank you.